Okay, we've waited many months, more than a year really, to have something to really review, and we're doing that in just a minute. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and today we're talking about Lower Decks. First episode dropped just a day or so ago, and we want to talk about it. It started off in a big action sequence where we have Mariner up against an entire battalion of Cardassians and amazingly defeats them before we find out what the twist is on that story. We find that Boimler, who was in shackles, where he claims that someone keeps asking him how many lights he sees, a throwback, of course, to the Next Generation episode where Picard was captured by the Cardassians. He gives away the premise of the opening bit. What we find out, though, is that in all of the time that's elapsed between the last episode we saw of the previous season and now, is that Mariner and her mother have been working together on a number of things. The idea was that there would be the main second contact mission, and then under her mother's blessings would be a side kind of effort on Mariner's part in order to do things that might not meet Starfleet regulations but are the right thing to do. Well, the fact of the matter is that Mariner has rebelled against her parents for so long that this is becoming kind of torturous, and it's not any better for Captain Freeman. So there is some resentment on both sides as they go down to their current mission, to where they are making second contact, and basically their mission is to have a communication identity number so that they can contact the government of the planet whenever they need to, whenever Starfleet needs to. And there is some bickering over just what this number is going to be, although Jack Ransom explains to the leader that really the number is never mentioned again. You just say to the computer, give me this planet, and immediately they come up. However, the leader is not convinced by that and believes that numbers are way more important than that. And so there's a lot of back and forth on this. Meantime, Mariner's side duty is to do some cleanup. And in doing some cleanup, she awakens some kind of temple. This is something that harkens back to the original series, where Kirk, upon opening his communicator and trying to contact the ship, is struck by a beam from a temple and dragged in, and the ship goes off, and he goes native for a certain amount of time. You may remember the episode. That's kind of suggested there. And this time, though, the beam hits Jack Ransom, and Jack, who has also been having some problems with Freeman and with Mariner, because suddenly he, being number one on the ship, is kind of sidetracked in favor of this mother-daughter coalition that Freeman and Mariner have developed, and he is kind of resenting this. So when he gets hit by the beam, it is what Mariner describes as it's all going sci-fi here. And the doctor is beamed down and says that he's hit by strange energy. It's the same kind that hit Gary Mitchell in the second pilot of the original series, which he becomes superhuman and superego on top of that. And the captain says from the comms, what's the solution to that? And the doctor says, well, they dropped a boulder on him, which in the original series, it seemed a very dramatic end, and never stopped to think that, stopping a superhuman ESP possessing creature could be defeated by dropping a rock on them. But it's been one of those things I've noticed in a lot of the Star Trek shows and movies, whereas when Otherside is undefeatable, generally speaking. This was in Nemesis, most recently used, where the Enterprise's shields were all down and all they could do was ram the other ship. And the other ship had full shields, but they were able to ram them just like there was nothing there. And so I was thinking, for all of the ray shields and photon torpedo defenses and things like that, if you just threw a rock at the ship, you'd probably do more damage to it. And they kind of suggest that at this juncture there. So a lot of references, of course, to previous Star Trek shows. The people who write this obviously are well versed in previous Trek lore. And it moves along where not only does Ransom become this superhuman, but his head separates and he goes up and bites the ship. Now, this is also similar to the time when I think in Plato's Stepchildren, they have a hand that grabs the Enterprise so that it can't move. They do that similar here. Finally, I won't give away with how they, I've already given too much away actually, but I won't give away of how they finally subdue him. But the whole adventure was very action-packed. It had its funny moments. We see some of the development between Tendi and Rutherford. And while all of this commotion is going on, of course, they're having a heart-to-heart in the middle of a corridor. This is in keeping with much of the Lower Decks type of stories that they do the B story, where while the ship is in danger and everybody's about to die, they have no idea what's going on. They're just, sweeping or something. We've noticed in this iteration of Season 2 that the animation has greatly improved. You can see much more fluid movement, which means they're using more frames per second in order to make the cartoons look a little more realistic in such a way. They are able to have better facial expressions than they have before. There's a lot more subtlety on that, and the writing is as good as it's been. So I think this is a wonderful way to start. It's been a long time since we've been able to see a new show, and it does not disappoint. So we highly recommend going back and checking out Star Trek Lower Decks. And all of their characters have something to do in this particular episode. So that's also very enjoyable. So that's our first review in who knows how long, and we'll have more coming up. As the weeks go by, we will continue to review Lower Decks and everything that follows that. So why not subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you know when the next video comes your way, and until next time, don't go far.